So today we're talking about the spiritual path, part 2. Last time, part 1, I spoke about how we go from mass consciousness, the modern American way, which is failing us on a regular basis, brainwashing, conditions, old programming, and we stay there until it doesn't work. We get popped out of the system and land on the spiritual path. So the spiritual path is vast. It's very different. There's no really clear picture of what's going on. All you do is have a little bit of path in front of you and you walk in faith. It's quite the adventure, and it gets confusing and complicated along the way. In the part 1 version, I talked about how we move from mass consciousness to the spiritual path, what it's compared to, such as the birth canal or falling off a cliff, and how to be once we're on the path. Today I'm going to talk about just one theory because the path is complicated and long, so we're just going to take this bit by bit. Today's theory is a theory that I came up with, and mind you, this is my current version of reality because reality along the path changes on a regular basis. This theory is called the elevator theory. And it's understanding that truth is dynamic, which doesn't make sense when you first hear it, because we want truth to be solid, to be there, and we can count on it, and there it is. But truth is dynamic. On the spiritual path, we don't understand quite a bit until we understand it. And then once we understand it, we're like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. And the old way doesn't even make sense anymore. We're like, that's nonsense. Like, this is the deal. But that continues to happen over and over again. Like I said, the spiritual path is quite the adventure. It's not necessarily fun all the time, but it is adventuresome. So let's get started and start understanding how truth is dynamic. When we are on a certain vibration of reality, something can be true and real. Say Santa Claus. When you're a kid, Santa Claus, that's it, man. He's the real deal, and I love Santa Claus. And as an adult, we have a different version of Santa Claus. We're both looking at the same thing, but two realities. So when we start understanding this, truth and the version of right and wrong goes out the window. Because now there's like right for that person and right for that person. So fighting doesn't happen anymore when you're on the path, because you're like, oh, you're just vibrating at a different reality than I am. It's okay. Which makes life easier as we start learning more and more. Very often, spiritual teachers will answer questions with, that depends. And as a student, you're like, oh, just give me a straight answer, please. I just want one straight answer around here. And they say that depends because when people are on the path for quite some time, years at a time, and they study and they're diligent, they can answer truth from different levels of consciousness. So this is the elevator theory. The basement theory is mass consciousness. They don't even see the light of day. First floor is a beginner level floor. And then there's intermediate floors, say 6 through 10. And then advanced floors, where you're really catching on and you're being challenged in new ways. And then there's people who have studied on the path so much. They live the path. They breathe the path. That's it. There's so much that they've become the path. So those are the advanced people, the super advanced people called the path-like pathwalkers. You know, Mother Teresa, Amma, all of those kind of people. So when a teacher says that depends, the teacher can kind of move up and down the elevator and see whatever reality they want to express it from. But the kind thing to do for a teacher is to understand the reality of the person who's asking that question, answer them on that level, and then bring them up a floor or two. So you can say, yes, dear, Santa Claus exists. And when you begin to question if Santa Claus exists, and you stop believing in Santa Claus, you stop getting presents from Santa Claus. So that's how things keep changing. I've got 3 examples to share with you about this elevator theory. The first one is forgiveness. Then we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, death. And the third one will be about handing our life over to spirit, handing the wheel over to Spirit. So let's talk about forgiveness. On the basement level, we go into blame. So think of something that you have to forgive somebody about, and you're kind of struggling with that. And then you can use that as we go along here. And if you don't have anything, think of just cheating, how people cheat. I don't know why, but they cheat. So the basement level, which is about here in our consciousness, says blame. It's their fault. They're a loser. How could they do this to me? And we go into this kind of animalistic eye for an eye theory. We just poke everybody's eye out. But of course that doesn't work because we'd be walking around with a bunch of poked eyes, and that's not cool. So we land on the basement, the first floor. And the first floor says, wow, this guy did me wrong, this lady did me wrong, and I'm in a lot of pain. This hurts. But I know there's a deeper level of consciousness inside of me somewhere. And I'm going to let that level of consciousness forgive. Because if we're still working out what is God, which is normal, we would say, well, God can forgive that person. I'm still working through my pain and my grief and my struggle, so I'm just going to go like that. And we go up a couple more floors, and it takes bravery to punch the next floor. When we get a further understanding of this forgiveness theory, we can say, well, okay, I don't know, I don't really like this, but I've got to forgive them. Then we moved on to an intermediate version of forgiveness. And we realized that in the Hindu contemplations, they talk about karma. And it is my karma that I have pulled this into my existence, and I'm having to deal with this cheating episode. So somehow, on some level, I've created this. And then we move to the advanced levels, say floor 11, and we come to an understanding of quantum physics. And quantum physics says we are vibratory frequencies, and we pull into existence that which we have created for our own self. And somewhere along the line, between karma and this understanding, we have been cheating as well. Maybe not this lifetime, but another. So the levels of responsibility get more intense as we climb this ladder or go up the elevator. And right about now, we're getting a phone call. Like, phone call? I'm struggling here. Who's bothering me? Hello? And who is it? Someone over here on the first floor. Listen, don't believe all that. You're not a jerk. It's okay. Everything's fine. Stop that. And then you're like, wait, no, I'm struggling with this idea here. Because that person's a jerk and we're all one, I'm a jerk too. So we start getting an understanding of a higher level. Nothing to do with blame, that's for sure. And when we say, all right, that person's a jerk, I've created this into the field, somewhere along the line I've been a jerk, so we're both jerks. And then we're starting understanding this concept of oneness. And this oneness, it's always like bliss and love and all. No, this oneness is like, oh, that's not okay. I'm a jerk, he's a jerk, we're all jerks. And then the responsibility starts kicking in. If I'm a jerk, then why am I a jerk? And this is where we have to do some soul searching. Ask for help. It's okay. In the path, you can ask for help. It's encouraged to ask for help. That's why we do community stuff here. When we're alone in mass consciousness hanging out in the basement, we're too proudful to ask for help. But here we got to ask for help. So we have to soul search and dig deep and say, why do I act like a jerk? What's causing me to cheat on myself, on others? Why am I selling myself short? And in this contemplation, you may come up with your own version, and a deep version may be fear of intimacy. That's not fun. So now we have to really dig in the garbage and why am I afraid of intimacy? And then we start wondering, I wonder if there's a back stairwell around here. We just don't want to even be in the building anymore. When we deal with this fear of intimacy, then we realize, okay, fine. We go up some more floors, and when we become the path-like path walker, we say, oh, This person did not harm me at all. They gave me a gift because I've explored this level of intimacy that I was struggling with. How kind of them to come into my life and give me this precious gift. Now, we don't blame them. We're not upset with them. We're not even calling them names at this time. And we say to ourselves, wow, I have great compassion for this person because now they're creating more karma for themselves and they're going to have to deal with the pain that I just dealt with, and whew, glad that's not me. Sorry, fella. So isn't that a beautiful thing? How we can move through understanding from one level to another and just give ourselves freedom and relief from the struggles and stresses that we put ourselves on when we're in the basement? So that is the theory, the elevator theory in regards to forgiveness. Now let's explore death. Yeah, death. It's an ugly thing. It's a scary thing. Most people just pretend like it's not going to happen. It's one of the only guarantees in life. Like, for sure. It's real. It's real. You're going to die. So in the basement, we say, if we get the call, like, you're sorry, your time's up, you got to go. In the basement, we go into blame. It's not my fault. I shouldn't be dying right now. The doctors didn't diagnose me soon enough. It's the stress of my job. It's the smoking, drugs, and addictions that I've been suffering under it. And it's not my fault. And like that. And they stay there, and then they die, and too bad for them. So in the first level of understanding, like, we're on the path, we're trying to be real, we're trying to, like, be there for ourselves. And we find out that we're dying, and this is what happens on the beginner first floor. Uh-oh. And that's all you can really say on the first floor because it's really tough. So you just have to sit there with the reality and the truth of it. Then when you kind of start moving up the floors, then you're like, okay, this death thing. I'm scared. I feel alone. And we go through a grieving process. Kubler-Ross is a death expert, and she understands the grieving process. We think of grief as when we lose somebody else, and we go through a grieving process. When we get the death sentence, the Grim Reaper is sitting in our hospital room in the corner with his Dick Tracy iPhone watch and saying, he's not joking. So we have to go through our own grieving process of our own death. We have to let go of our roles that we've been playing, the prestige that we've earned, all of our finances, all of our prideful things. And we have to just lay them down because those don't come with us. And if those have been covering up the deeper, darker issues, then we have to deal with those. So it's a very convoluted, rough time over here in this intermediate stages. Now the advanced stages says, okay, I have got some work to do. I got to get my act together. I'm going to have to figure some things out real fast right now. Anybody wait to the last minute in here? Yeah. Well, you gotta catch up on this one because there's not enough time to deal with last minute things at this point in our life. We really have to be proactive when it comes to death. So think about getting your will done, your living will done now, because when people really accept that they're going to die, when they really feel that and understand that, they'll clean up their act, and then they live a fuller life. And I invite you to do that for yourself. Because when we're in avoidance and denial and all that other basement activities, we're missing out on really beautiful things. You know that prayer when we're little children, they teach us, if I should die before I awake? Like, why do they scare the children before they go to sleep? But that's actually a concept that the Baha'i use. They wipe the slate clean every day. They kind of clear the air. They do forgiveness work. They go through their activities. And in metaphysics, in pranic healing, we have a arhatic practice, and they encourage us to do a routine at night before we go to bed where we review the day. You take 5 minutes, and you see all the times and all the moments that we sold ourselves short, that we were impolite, that we missed the moment, that we just were kind of clueless. And if you're on the beginner stage of the spiritual elevator. That might take 20 minutes, but it's okay. It's not where the baseball part of us comes out and beats us up for being such a jerk. It's actually where we objectively review our day. And then the fun part, there are some fun moments on the spiritual path, is we get to take another 5 minutes and review what we've done well in the day. What have we accomplished? When did we slow down enough to be kind to ourselves? When have we taken a moment to connect with a stranger? When did we feel at peace? When did we get to sit outside for 5 minutes and connect with the birds? These are the kind of gifts we start giving ourselves when we become more and more aware. Eventually, we take a few more floors up on this advanced level, and we start accepting who we are. Now, before we get there, we kind of go through this hurry-up stage, this last-minute stage, and trying to get our life together. Because why? Because we think we're going to get judged when we die. There's a great book called Many Lives, Many Masters, and they talk about what could happen up when you go to heaven or wherever that is. My theory is very similar to their theory, and I think that we don't really get judged. I think we judge ourselves. So here we are at the end of life, and we do this regret thing, we do the inventory thing, we kind of figure out where have we failed, where do we stink, we're just losers. And I think after we die, we still have like this ego, and we're still defensive. And when we get up to heaven, there's this beautiful angel with the Akashic records there and a clipboard. And those people who are very understanding and very spiritual, have you noticed they just smile and nod? Like that. And they look at you, but they're looking right through you. And they see all your ugly stuff. They see all the lies we tell to ourselves. And they don't care. They really love you. So they're looking through you, and you get up there. And when you look at these people, some of us met Alma last week, and she's just this light being. And when she looks at you, she's like that. She looks right through you. And when you get to meet people like this, you're like, oh, oh. It's so touching. Because if they can accept who you are, then you can accept who you are. But in our defensive mode, I think we get up to the angel. We're like, look, I don't need to hear it from you. I know where I've been. I know what I've done. I know I've been a thankless child. I know I've been mean to my siblings. I cheated in school. I did my share of drugs and alcohol. I dated the wrong people. I was a resentful employee. I held grudges against my spouse. And, in this recent cancer diagnosis, I even figured out that I don't even like myself. So there. And these angel people are like, okay, I'm just the usher, and I'm going to bring you over to this other room. And we're like, oh. Then when we get to like a counselor person, they're the ones who are just sitting there, and they're helping us design our next life, because we go through lifetimes in the karmic realm of things, and we try to straighten things out and get better at what we're doing. So we can look back in these Akashic records and say, wow, look, I was a bigot here. I've done better, but I'm still quite prejudiced, and I really want to get this off of my plate. So why don't I get born into a situation where there's a lot of prejudices against me? That will let me really learn. And our counselor person, they're like, all they say is, are you sure you want to do that? And we're like, yes, it's time now. I've met people who have stacked up their list of things to do in a lifetime. But we forget this conversation that we have with these angels. And we're like, my life is so hard. Who put this together? Because they were mean. So some people really have difficult lives because they're really trying to clean up their karma. And some people are nicer and kinder to themselves, or they're more evolved and they've moved along on the path. Eventually, we get to a place of self-acceptance. So we're kind of like that angel, where we say, okay, I've made some mistakes. Who cares? I'm a good person in general. I'm trying to do the right thing. It's okay. I love myself, flaws included. I'm already ready to go. And then the super advanced, the pathwalkers people, they say, hallelujah, I get to go home. So they're very happy. See, that's another long journey up the elevator. When we become more responsible for our own self, our activities, our thoughts, our feelings, when we can really celebrate the difficulties in life, the challenges in life. We keep moving forward, keep moving forward. It takes integrity to move forward. It takes bravery to move forward. Support is a really good idea. And we become gentler and kinder as we move up in the elevator, to ourselves and to other people. We understand, we have more compassion, and it becomes a very precious thing. When we can face death and understand that an end is going to happen, we can really live a richer life. The third and last concept that I'd like to cover is handing over the wheel. Now, in the basement, we're all about control. We think we're in control of our life, and that's not the truth at all. We don't realize that until we've landed on the path and we look back at our life and realize, how did I even make it through half of those things and not kill myself? By car accidents or driving drunk or just getting so depressed and getting so lost and off the path of possibilities that we can't even stand it. So in the basement, so think of it as driving a car. The spiritual path invites you to get into this car. Now, in the basement, we see the car, and we're on the sidewalk, and we're like, no way. I am not getting in that thing. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that. I don't know where it's going. I'm not even dealing with it. And the beginner layers of the elevator door opens, and we see this car, and the door's open. And there's a little sticker like, get in. We're like, oh, dear. Now, perhaps you spiritual pathwalkers have realized that this is real. We're like, oh, dear. I got to do what? Go where? And I don't know. I don't know anything right now. I'm so confused. And now I have to get into this vehicle? So we get in, and the first thing we do is put our seatbelt on. And the steering wheel's so far away, we slide that up. Now we're choked with the seatbelt, and we can't breathe. And even if you have black skin, you have white knuckles. We are so excited about oh my God, where am I going? Your left leg is pushing the floorboard so tightly and so firmly that perhaps it might bust through, and then you can have Fred Flintstone brakes, and you won't have to worry about going too fast. The right leg is on the gas pedal, and your knee is shaking. You are checking the rear view mirrors constantly, and your eyes are bulging just to make sure you don't miss anything, because our path is going to go away, and perhaps rather quickly. But no, you're just clipping along at a 5-mile-an-hour rate. It feels so intense, but you're really making baby steps. And then you start calming down, and you move up the elevator to intermediate level. And in the intermediate level, you start relaxing, and you realize, oh, things aren't really that bad on the spiritual path. I still don't know where I'm going. I don't know how all of this works. I feel spirit in the car, but I don't understand a thing. But I'm going to relax about this now. Nothing bad is happening. The crises have moved away. So the window's down, you got your arm out, you've moved your seat back, you got one hand on the wheel, Zen radio is playing, and you're like, yeah, this is working. And now you're smiling and nodding like the angels, and you're like, this is good, I like this. Just when you think everything's comfortable, you hear a voice that says, slide over. One, you're hearing voices now. And you don't like hearing voices because now you're a weirdo. You've been paying attention to your teachers and other people further up on the path than you, and you're like, wow, they're weird. And now you're the weirdo. So the car doesn't pull over so you can get around and get in the other seat. No, it keeps going. And you're continually asked, move over, move over. This is another layer of letting go of control, or the illusion of control. So then we slide over the console with the gear shift, and you want to tap on the brakes, but that would hurt. So you just keep sliding over, shaking. As soon as you land in the passenger seat, you put the seatbelt back on. And you're like, why am I putting the seatbelt on? No one's driving, but the car's moving. I don't know what's going on here. And you continually look over at the driver's seat that continually stays empty. There's no messages, there's no anything, no information. You're just having to sit there in your life, not in control, not driving your own life. But then you start relaxing. You're like, well, this is working. You get promotions, things happen, money comes to you, life is good, you're sleeping better. You're like, oh, this is great. And then, just when you think everything's okay, that same voice says, go in the back. You're like, go in the back? What? Go in the back. So you start sliding in the back of the car, and you're like, I don't know. You crawl in the back, and you're hanging on to the driver's seat chair. And you're like, oh, God, who's driving? What's going on here? And it's so nerve-wracking sometimes to be on the spiritual path because we don't know, and we're not in control, and it's not fair. But no, we got to calm down. So even on advanced layers, we're still challenged to trust. We just have to breathe. We have to refer to our tools that we've learned along the way. We have to ask for help and support, and it's okay. Now, the path-like pathwalkers have a new understanding. They're like, wait a minute. I'm not driving. I'm in the back seat. This is like a limo ride. So then you get way in the back because you can't reach the wheel anyway from back there. You can try backseat driving, but that doesn't really work. As in life, it doesn't really work. But we have direction. We can say, I want more peace and harmony. I want to yield my power in beautiful ways. I want to share the good in my life. And the driver's like, check. Now we can sit back and go for this ride because we can trust the driver, that driver within, that universal power. Now in metaphysics, we teach that I am God. I'm not quite there yet. I am still ignorant. I still have a fat head. I still got lots of lessons to learn. So when we say I am God, there's an aspect of God within us. And that's the thing that we learn to trust, we learn to love, we learn to respect, and our intuition. And other people can be aspects of the divine, coming to us, giving messages. A child can be an aspect of our consciousness, giving us clarity. When life starts making sense, and when we can get up to these higher levels, our peace and our clarity start calming down. We can move from one place to another when we understand that we can take these layers of the elevator and go higher and higher and higher. It's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of clarity, but we've got to calm down our basement activity in order to be brave enough to move. So we can move from being stuck and afraid and blaming and wanting to poke eyes out to compassion. We can move from being afraid of death to celebrating that we get to go home. And we can move from refusing to get into the car to stepping into the limo of our life. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in your life, and so it is. And now we're going to move into spiritual mind treatment. So unfold your bodies, relax into your chairs. There is one consciousness, one life-giving vibration. We are this, individualized. We have obstacles, beliefs, programs. And when we release these things, we become more and more of our own self, our true self. The best self that we have, that we know is in there. And as we punch a higher floor, we become more and more that self. As we brave out our failures, as we are willing to change our concepts of reality, as we embrace the beauty who we are, the love that we have, the traits and talents that we're afraid of, we release and we start flying higher and higher. It's a beautiful thing. Life is an adventure. There's nothing stuck about the spiritual path. We're blooming, growing, evolving. And we're in charge. We're pressing the buttons. And the floors only go up. We let go of old ideas, things that are not serving us anymore, and we embrace new beginnings, new ideas, new expressions, expanded awarenesses. Life is beautiful. We are beautiful. We release this into the consciousness and fly with it in deepest gratitude. And so it is.